Hello students, welcome to Laex. Welcome to our 21st weekly magazine where we'll be focusing from 16th July to 22nd July 2017. Again, as I have told you, it's very important for us to actually look at some of the important aspects which are there from both prelims and mains point of view. And this week we'll be focusing mostly on those areas which has high possibility to be asked in both prelims and mains. So let's quickly get into what are the important issues of this week. As the government is talking about the PSUs in India, what should be the role the PSUs play? Should government still have stake in these PSUs? Should we go for further liberalization and privatization? All these aspects were in news. So the question is mostly with respect to future of PSUs in India with respect to the essay. So we want you to write historically what was the role and has it changed now and what is expected of this PSUs in future. From economy point of view, this can be an important issue. Then there is no much news with respect to GS1. So what we are actually looking at is a post-independence India question where we are talking about the nation building. As you people are aware, there is a clear definition of nation which separates itself from the state. State has four important components. We say population, government, territory, and sovereignty in political science terms. But when it comes to international relations, sovereignty is actually replaced by recognition by other states. When we say nation, nation is a collective feeling and it is based on common ethnicity, culture, shared history, or it can also be on the basis of language. South Asia, you see, language has played a very important role in building this consciousness. Whenever one language tried to dominate the other language, that has always led to problems. So in South Asia, if we take, either we talk about the problems or we talk about solutions, everything lies in this nation building process. So UPSC in post-independence India has clearly talked about nation building and what are the measures taken by the government. Supreme Court has made national anthem mandatory, and we can also see some sort of tankers being used in particular colleges to build nationalism. Suddenly there is rise in public respect for the soldiers and anger against the enemies. In all these circumstances, UPSC may not ask you only about the nation building and other process and from constitution point of view the rights, but it may relate it with the post-independence aspect as well. So this is very important for us. The next most important topic, which is mostly controversial and UPSC usually avoids a question on this. But whenever they ask you a question, they ask you in a most neutral way so that students may not write their biased answers. That is actually with respect to extrajudicial killings, or we talk about Armed Forces Special Power Act. So some people, especially NGOs, calls it to be an extrajudicial killings, whereas the government and the army wants to protect the actions according to Armed Forces Special Powers Act. Now when we talk about this, the Special Powers Act actually gives the army to arrest suspected individual and he will be taken to the military courts and action will be taken against him in those courts. Sometimes it is believed that these people are being killed by the military itself. So these are some of the accusations on the military. But we should also be aware that here we are talking about the insurgency affected areas where the state governments were ineffective in actually controlling the law and order situation. And at that time, the state governments requested the army to interfere and take control of the situation. And at that point of time, army said, if army is present in the civilian areas and if any army action is being questioned by the courts with interference regularly, they may not be very effective in handling the situation. At that point of time, the state governments and the central government empowered the army to control the law and order situation in some of these states. And over a period of time, it is believed that accusations are on both sides, where it is believed that army had done some mistakes which are being highlighted by the NGOs, and even army has accepted that these have occurred and they have taken strict action against those army officials. But the NGOs argue that they have to be brought to the civilian courts. And whenever you kidnap anyone or whenever you arrest anyone, kidnap is the term used by NGOs, whereas arrest is the term used by army officers. Or even in the local police stations, if you arrest anyone and if an FIR is filed, it is mandatory for you to present them before the court. But in case of the AFSPA and the martial laws, we usually observe that these provisions are missing. So they actually are against the fundamental rights of the people. And this is done to ensure that law and order is maintained. And these are very much required when you are fighting not against your own citizens, but against the enemies of your country, right? So it's very, very important for us to look into this. Nothing much to say. Supreme Court has actually reiterated that in these parts, accountability has to be ensured. And rule of law is very, very important, even if it is military. The next important issue, which can be asked either in history, or it can be asked in polity, or it can be asked in international relations as well. That is actually with respect to Jammu and Kashmir. Jammu and Kashmir has become a most significant issue once the debate on Article 370 started. Most of the students are aware that Jammu and Kashmir is actually dealt only with Article 370. But there is Article 35A which also deals with Jammu and Kashmir. But before we go and understand what exactly it is, we need to historically understand some of the important factors. As you're all aware that Pakistan had actually waged war with India to occupy Jammu and Kashmir. Some portions of Jammu and Kashmir are still under Pakistan occupied territories. India took this issue to United Nations. I'm not going in detail and explaining each and every point. I'm just giving you a gist. India went to United Nations, and United Nations Security Council passed a resolution with respect to Kashmir. And in that resolution, they had three important things that has to take place in Jammu and Kashmir. The first one is Pakistan should withdraw completely from Jammu and Kashmir. Second, Indian Army should withdraw. Third, they said that referendum has to be held in Jammu and Kashmir. Pakistan never withdrew from Jammu and Kashmir, so India was never able to conduct referendum in Jammu and Kashmir. And international community always questions whenever United Nations has passed a resolution about any particular state. It may not be only in Jammu and Kashmir, it may be with respect to Sri Lanka, it may be with respect to Palestine, anywhere. Wherever an ethnic tribe is there or ethnic composition is there, and if others are actually made to enter into this territory, for example, let us take Pakistan occupied Kashmir. In that, if Pakistanis are forcing some other Pakistani nationals to come and settle in Pakistan occupied Kashmir, then the demography of Pakistan occupied Kashmir will change. And over a period of time, their population will also increase. Then the natives of Jammu and Kashmir may be reduced. And in future, if referendum is held, obviously the people who were Pakistani nationals will always support Pakistan. This is a major problem in almost all the occupied territories. India to tell to the world that Jammu and Kashmir wants to be part of India on its own, and the people of Jammu and Kashmir wants to be part of India, and India is not aimed at changing the demography of this region. So, in Constitution, we gave a special provision, Article 35A, which actually spoke about special provisions for the residents of Jammu and Kashmir, where job opportunities and real estate, especially purchase of land, is the special rights given to the people of Jammu and Kashmir itself. This is to ensure that the demography of Jammu and Kashmir is maintained. Now the central government has actually requested Supreme Court to go for a debate on this, whereas the High Court of Jammu and Kashmir has clearly stated that when Jammu and Kashmir acceded to India, they actually talked about certain things that they need certain independence from the entire state for accession. But according to Article 370, President had the right to apply certain provisions of the Constitution which he feels correct when it actually comes with respect to Jammu and Kashmir. But whenever he wants to apply any part of the Constitution to Jammu and Kashmir, then he has to take permission from the state governments as well. So these are some of the things. Now, the debate is actually with respect to special provisions given to the residents of Jammu and Kashmir. Why it is biased for other people is the question. So here, Article 35A may be very, very important for you. One of the most problematic social issue which the government is unable to provide to the people is actually with respect to health. And when we look at private hospitals, services and facilities are good. When we look at public hospitals or government hospitals, you have infrastructure, but unfortunately services are not provided properly. And it is not only in government hospitals, it is also in the government banks. Wherever government is directly involved, one of the major problem is actually with respect to services provided. Niti Aayog has come up with a plan where it is talking about the PPP model for few select services in the hospitals initially, so that the private interference in the services will improve governance of these, and it may actually help in proper functioning of these hospitals, and this may also help in future for the country to move towards health for all, which can be made as a basic fundamental right similar to right to education. We are all aware about the RTE, right to education, which I was just speaking now, where it is mandatory for the government to provide education for 6 to 14 years. And during this time, several schools and colleges were actually set up. But most of the teachers were not qualified enough for this post. So Lok Sabha recently passed a bill which said that within next 2 years, it is mandatory for these teachers to acquire BEd, so that they have the eligibility to teach to the teachers. So this amendment is in news. So nothing much to see. As the qualification of the teachers who were involved in this was not up to the mark, there were several problems with the quality of education. Last 2 years, we have seen certain programs of the government aimed at qualification of the teaching. Now they are focusing on improving the qualification of the teachers so that it becomes mandatory for everyone to acquire this whenever they are going for teaching. Prime Minister via Vandana Yojana is the new scheme of the government aimed at providing pension for the old age. It is being done with the help of LIC, where senior citizens aged 60 years and above can apply for this. They have a fixed 8% per annum because this interest rate is changing. So now they want to stabilize the money which these people are going to get, and it is exempted from service tax or GST. And on the survival of the pensioner to the end of policy term of 10 years, the purchase price along with the final pension installment shall be payable and loans can be taken. The scheme also allows for premature exit for the treatment of any critical or terminal illness of not only himself or also of the spouse. On death of the pensioner during the policy term, the purchase price shall be paid to the beneficiary whom they have actually written, right? So this is with respect to everyone. This is government contribution and this is not there. It is only to ensure that 8% will be available throughout. Then there was an article with respect to lateral entry into civil services. That is, now through UPSC you're entering into civil services, but through lateral entry, that is based on the individual's capacity. He may be given the ranks of deputy secretary, director or joint secretary, especially in the energy and infrastructure sector. Maybe the benefit here will be for those people who are actually working in these sectors at a particular position where they might have improved the efficiency of those companies. So they can be taken by the government and they may be given jobs in the government as well, so that the efficiency of the government PSUs will also work effectively. And this is not the first time there are talks about this. There are certain committees, especially first ARC, Surendranath Committee and Hota Committee, and also second ARC talked about lateral entry process, and there should be certain systems in place for that. In India, we have certain things, especially when Planning Commission was there. The top management of the Planning Commission was actually taken with the lateral entry itself. So there are certain examples of this already. Not only in India, in United States, executives are usually taken through lateral entry. So it's very, very important for us to know the benefit of this, because not everyone may actually enter into this system. There may be certain merit outside. We have always seen that in private sectors also, people keep shifting from one company to another company on the basis of opportunity. But that will be on the basis of merit as well. So when we can use this, then the efficiency of the system can be improved. But one of the major problem is this may actually lead to political appointments, where they will be appointing only their own people for corruption and other things. And the promotions for the career of civil servants may be in trouble, and that may lead to court cases. So all this have to be taken into consideration. So this article is actually with respect to the sluggish economic growth all over the world. Today, after 2008, we have actually seen that the globalization impact is seen more on the Western countries than on the developing countries. India and China were the beneficiaries of this system, but today they are affected mainly because of protectionism of the West. We always observe that whenever we talk about globalization, there will be times when the economy will grow, there will be time when economy will fall down. But whenever it grows, the most benefited one will be developed economies. But whenever it is less, the most affected will also be developed countries, but along with them, whoever is dependent on the system will also be affected. India and China, which were getting benefit recently, are affected by the protectionist policies of the West. Almost all the European countries and also United States, after Trump coming to power, are focusing on protectionism. Brexit is a clear indication of protectionism. Along with this, the migration, the fear of terrorism, all this is leading to some sort of protectionist policies across the world. But this has affected not only the economic globalization, but also labor movement and others that are actually taking place. So, from economy point of view, please try to talk something about these aspects. After forest fires in Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand and other parts of the country, National Green Tribunal has directed the governments to submit what are the measures they are planning to take, by when, deadlines, guidelines, all this are being asked. So we have given certain facts with respect to forest fires. Just go through it once. I just don't want to read it out that okay, you have this much acres of forest land, how much is affected and all, but these are all factual information. Guidelines are not being provided by the governments to the courts. So once they provide it, it will be easy for us to look into that issue. Then there was an article with respect to think beyond loan waivers, which is very, very important from economy point of view. The reason for this is, initially we wanted to help the farmers from the loan waivers, mainly because the farmers, whenever the crop failed, it was very difficult for them to pay back. But unfortunately, now this has become a populist policy that before governments come to power, they promise loan waivers. Whenever they promise loan waivers, or expecting that there will be loan waiver when a new government is coming, farmers are not willing to pay even when they have. These are exceptional cases, misuse of loan waivers. Due to this, the NPAs of the banks are increasing and they are not willing to give, but it is mandatory under the priority sector lending to give. So a minimum part is given to them. But unfortunately, the misuse of this had led to several economic problems in the country. So now when the loan waiver comes, the money that will be released to the banks will be delayed and the entire process will be affected. So trust in the system is also being lost. This is the reason why some economists argue that don't talk only about loan waivers, go for some other things, that is helping farmers with insurance, or giving proper facilities to the farmers, giving proper information to the farmers, that don't go for loans in these circumstances. And government has also proposed UBI, Universal Basic Income, to everyone, just to ensure that in case of these failures, farmers are not in a position to commit suicide and all. They can work effectively and they can wait for the next crop. Increasing farm suicides forces the governments to take these actions, but rather than just loan waivers, there are certain things that needs to be done by the governments to stop the misuse of this and at the same time to improve the farm growth. Prime Minister has promised that his main ambition is to ensure that there will be doubling of farmers' income. And if that has to happen, it cannot happen through these procedures. So their efficiency has to be increased. At last, you have an ethics question. So please keep writing answers to this. Thank you. Thanks a lot for watching.